Jamaican man awarded almost $18 million in state of emergency detention lawsuit. Hi again and welcome. This is Links 007 TV. Let's talk, and we'll be right back with the full details to come. If it's the first time you're watching, please remember to like, share, subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell and click on all so you're always updated with our latest report. We'll be right back after this short break with the full details. Welcome back and thanks for joining us for the program. This is Links 007 TV. Let's talk. This is the place where we discuss issues of national importance, global importance, or just situations that are buzzing in the news. So, what I want to talk about today on the program is a situation that took place some years ago in which a Jamaican man was actually detained under the public state of emergency. Now, one have to recall this was implemented some years ago back in Montego Bay, and most of the time when this is implemented is because in that era there has been a spate of unrest or civil crime that has been escalating out of control, and the government sought to try and curtail these problems using the state of emergency. So the state of emergency is basically where the police and also the military are given certain added rights and responsibilities which might restrict the movement of citizens from one area to another, and also you're subject to search and also detention for up to 48 hours without being charged under the public state of emergency. So one now has been imposed in Spanish Town, St. Catherine, and this is based on the recent upsurge of violent crimes that has been taking place in that era. But might I remind you that when there is a public state of emergency, some of your rights as citizens are basically paralyzed and you're not free to do as you would want to when this occurs. So this can either be nationally, in which the entire country can be put under a state of emergency, or a specific geographical location can be put under a state of emergency, just like what happened in Montego Bay some years ago and what is currently happening now in Spanish Town, St. Catherine, based on the recent upsurge in violence. So the public state of emergency is implemented by the government of the country, and most of the time when this happens, people can be taken into custody for up to 48 hours without being charged, went through the vetting process whether or not they are involved in any criminal activities, and then they are set free. So an individual was actually detained by the police under one of these state of emergency. However, he filed a lawsuit against the government for his wrongful detention, and he actually sued the state, and he was awarded by the state over $18 million for that detention. So might I remind you that most of the times when you're in this public state of emergency and you're taken into custody by the police, some of your rights can be breached based on how they treat you and how the situation is handled while you're in custody. Some people go inside and they get hurt, they get physically abused by the cops based on what transpired behind those doors, and one can't even begin to imagine how some of these individuals or what they go through when they're detained under the public state of emergency. So now I'm about to update you with this individual experience that this person actually sued the state and he actually won the state, and he was awarded a whole lot of money for that wrongful detention. So let me update you with that right now, right here on Links 007 TV. Let's talk. So it's not quite often that you heard of individual taking the state to court and they're actually successful. So in this case, this individual was actually successful in taking the state to court, and the Constitutional Court has awarded him nearly $18 million in damages to Rashane Clark, the St. James taxi operator who it found was unlawfully detained for several months under the public state of emergency that was declared for the Western Parish in January of 2018. So the full list of court officials comprising of Justices Chester Stamp, Anne-Marie Nemhard and Tara Carr handed down the landmark decision which will have consequences for future zones of special operation or the state of public emergency as they are implemented in Jamaica, and this was just handed down yesterday by the court. The justices also found that the emergency regulation governing the state of public emergency were unconstitutional. The court was asked to consider whether some of the emergency power regulation infringed or violated the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedom of the Constitution, and if so, whether these breaches were reasonably justified for achieving the purpose of the state of emergency that was imposed in St. James. Additionally, the court had to consider and determine whether any of Mr. Clark's constitutional right had been infringed or violated, and if so, whether he is entitled to redress, said the summary that was read out in court by Justice Chester Stamp. In decomposing of the case, the court held and declared that the Emergency Power Regulation 22 and 32 in respect to the Fundamental Rights of Freedom of Movement Regulation 30, 33 and 38 in respect to the fundamental rights of freedom and liberty breach the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedom of the Constitution, the summary added. The court also declared that the regulation was unconstitutional, arguing that the government gave the authorities certain powers to restrict the movement of people, basically infringing on their fundamental rights of freedom. Basically, that was what was read out in court. So the court also found and held that Mr. Clark's fundamental rights and freedom under the Constitution, in particular his right to freedom of liberty, his right to be informed of the reason for his detention, and these were all violated under the Constitution, and therefore he is entitled to damages as redress for these violations. The court acknowledged that the case raises issues of paramount national importance in an era where the fundamental rights and freedom of individuals in Jamaica traverse the measures adopted by the state to protect the society in general. Hours before the judgment was made, the Prime Minister of Jamaica, Mr. Andrew Holness, declared another state of emergency for the parish of St. Catherine, which has seen a flare-up of gang-related activities in recent months. In responding to the judgment, the Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Right Honourable Mr. Andrew Holness, then made a post on his social media account. So this was the release from Jamaica House under the office of the Prime Minister dated June 17, 2022 for immediate release. Statement by the Attorney General of Jamaica. The Attorney General of Jamaica has acknowledged the ruling by the Supreme Court of Jamaica in the case of Roshane Clark versus the Attorney General of Jamaica regarding the constitutionality of the emergency powers of the regulations in 2018. Even before the court ruling, the government had amended the regulation governing the states of public emergency after 2018. These amendments were made to satisfy concern raised by litigants in the courts regarding the process engaging the detention of suspects. These amendments are currently operating in regulation governing states of public emergency. However, the Attorney General is now in the process of detailing the review of the ruling to ensure that the current regulations are consistent with the court's ruling. The government of Jamaica respects the court's ruling and commits to ensuring that the judgment is thoroughly followed. The government is totally committed to fully applying the rule of law as laid down in the Constitution, and this was a release from the Prime Minister's office as well. So this is what took place in this situation. So this individual actually was wrongfully detained by the police under the state of public emergency in St. James. We are not sure what really transpired during the detention. However, his rights were breached and he was actually awarded a huge sum of money for that detention. So there are actually other cases before the court as well, and I believe it's actually 5 cases are before the courts right now with 5 other individuals that were actually detained under the state of public emergency. But one have to imagine how these individuals are dealt with whenever they are taken into custody, because we have seen a number of videos circulating online and we see how authorities deal with individuals, especially in traffic stops, and even when they are carrying out searches, the level of respect is very low in relation to this. But this is a milestone accomplishment for this individual, and it's just an eye-opener as well for many out there to see that whenever you do believe in something and you put your mind at it, you can achieve, because many individuals thought that he would have lost this case, and look, he's successful at restoring his credibility and also his rights as a citizen. We're gonna leave this here though. Thanks for watching. This has been Links 007 TV. Let's talk. Peace out and have a blessed and productive day from the Links TV team.
Links TV. Entertainment with a difference. Subscribe now to Links TV.